All right. Okay, the poll results. Does tillage reduce or increase the pore spaces in soil? Well, we had about over 2/3 of you said that it decreased, and some of you said that it increased. You'll find out the answer to that. I won't be a spoiler here. How did you learn about today's program? Again, a lot of you heard about it through the Bren email, and Rob in a few minutes is going to tell you all how to make sure you can get the Bren emails. Lower Boise Watershed Council. Oh, thank you. We've got our co-hosts, Ada Soil and Water Conservation District, also helped get the word out. And have you ever attended a Bren program before? We've got a lot of returnees, so that's super awesome. All right, we are just at about time to get the real show on the road here. Give me a second and I will stop sharing the results of the poll. Get that off of everybody's screen. Excellent. We've got about 25 people here today, and so we really are appreciative of everybody's coming here and being with us today. Let me just say a few words that we do have co-sponsors today. The Boise River Enhancement Network is a network, and we really make a point to make sure we work with other stakeholders and other organizations around the valley. And our partners today are the Ada Soil and Water Conservation District, the Lower Boise Watershed Council, and Peaceful Valley Farm. Excellent. I can see your little thumbs up, Josie. I appreciate that. Hi, Josh from ICL. Awesome. Okay. Next up is welcome. Again, I'm Liz Paul. I'm the coordinator with the Boise River Enhancement Network, and I'm going to turn myself off. I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie from the Ada Soil and Water Conservation District to say a few words about them. Let me get myself off of here. Okay, Stephanie, it's all yours. Oh, you need to be unmuted. Okay, I thought you were there with Josie. Minor glitch, just hang on a second, and I will do that for you.
All right, can everyone hear me?
I can hear you, and if I can hear you, probably everybody else can too. Let me get myself off of, let me mute myself now. There you go, Steph.
Hi, so good morning, or I guess almost afternoon, everyone. I am Stephanie Rail, and I'm the Office Administrator at Ada Soil and Water Conservation District. Some of you might be familiar with the Conservation District, but for those of you who aren't, we are one of 50 conservation districts in Idaho. In the US, conservation districts were formed after the Dust Bowl ecological disaster of the 1930s and 40s, and they were formed to address soil erosion and to promote local, regional, and national voluntary soil and water conservation. So traditionally, our conservation partners have been farm and ranch operators, but today our customer base is expanding. We are developing new partnerships with other groups like Bren, and who are interested in promoting the wise use of natural resources, planning, and conservation in Ada County. So like everyone, we're still navigating the coronavirus pandemic situation, and for the time being, we have postponed all of our in-person events, but we have started a new group on Facebook called the Soil and Water Stewards, and I can send a link in the comments. And we have started weekly online classes there, which have been going well so far. Our first class was a Gardening 101 workshop with Peaceful Valley Farm, and our next class is actually tonight, and it's on this topic, no-till farming with McIntyre Farm. So if you'd like to hear more after this great discussion and lecture, please join us tonight at 6 p.m. to 7. And you can find that on our Soil and Water Stewards on Facebook. And then we also will be having a chicken raising class with McIntyre Farm, and that'll be scheduled soon. And so Josie Erskine is our district manager, and we're excited to be here today to talk about no-till farming and improving water quality. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. That was awesome. And hey, Stephanie, you can use the chat and you can put the information about this evening's program right there in the chat box so everybody can see that. And you can also put your URL for the website and any other information right into the chat, and everybody can see that easily and don't have to remember. And for those people just joining us, welcome, welcome. If you're interested in soil health and clean water, you're definitely in the right spot. And when you do come, when you come in, if you could please introduce yourself on the chat, put down your name, that would be super awesome. Next up is Ashley Newberry from the Lower Boise Watershed Council.
Hey, Liz. As Liz said, I'm Ashley, and I work for the City of Caldwell, and I serve as the Vice Chair of the Lower Boise Watershed Council. I just wanted to comment real quickly on some of the monies that we've contributed to no-till drills in the past 5-ish years. So all this in the Treasure Valley. In 2014, we awarded $17,500 and $319 funding to Ada Soil and Water Conservation District so they could purchase a no-till drill and an 8-foot roller crimper. In 2020, again, we've contributed to 2 no-till drill purchases in Canyon County. We awarded $15,000 to the Canyon Soil and Water Conservation District for a no-till drill, primarily for use in Canyon County. In addition, we awarded a little over $35,000 to Watson Farms to purchase a much larger drill for bigger swaths of land after he was able to demonstrate that it would be used extensively among partner farms in the area. So just wanted to share that and how much we are looking to support use of no-till drills.
Thank you so much, Ashley, and thank you to all the folks. I also serve on the board of the Lower Boise Watershed Council, and that group really has made a lot of investments in water quality in the Lower Boise River, and that's really awesome. All right, and so then next up is Dr. Rob Tiedemann, who serves on the coordinating team and is the vice chair of the Boise River Enhancement Network. And take it away, Rob.
Good morning, my name's Rob. Welcome to another of our brown bag lunchtime presentations that have a long history of drawing much interest from the community. You're now part of that history. I'm an ecologist with a longtime interest in the Boise River. I'm pleased to serve on the executive committee of BREN. BREN is a gathering of people interested in the health and happiness of the river for all to enjoy. We seek to improve the quality of fish and wildlife habitat and the plant communities growing along the river. We do this by responding to requests to help in the management of the river using sound science and education. Our projects include daylighting a portion of Cottonwood Creek in Julie Davis Park, offering our peer review of bank stabilization projects sponsored by the City of Boise, and working with the City of Middleton to conserve over 100 acres of riparian open space. We are a 501c3 nonprofit that is funded by donations and grants. If you would like to give to our work, please share with us your email address by visiting our website and registering, and visiting the Idaho Gives website after today's presentation to help fund our work. Here's Adam Bass to tell you more about that.
Hi, my name's Adam Bass, and I'm on the BREN seat coordinating team as well, and I chair And so I think that this time of year is great to recognize all the nonprofits in Idaho, and also Brent as well, and what they do. We really enjoy receiving donations, of course, and it helps us really feel responsible for heading up the coordination and the effort to educate our community about all the variables that go into the Boise River. And so these brown bag lunches do that, as well as many other coordination and projects that we complete along the Boise River. And so I think that Idaho Gives is a great opportunity to recognize Bren, as well as all many other nonprofits. And it's a really great thing to take the time to go on to Idaho Gives and look at all the nonprofits that are around Idaho. Who knows what sort of resources you'll run into, and what sort of things you'll learn about. So I would definitely encourage everyone to take a look at it and just peruse that website. But if you find it in your stomach to pony up some donations for Bren, we would much appreciate it. Right now we're at about 15% of our goal, and that is within one day. So we're on our way to meeting our goal, and looking forward to accomplishing that. So again, thanks for tuning in to this, and take care.
Thank you, Adam. I am so pleased this morning to introduce our speaker, Josie Erskine. Josie is the co-founder of Peaceful Belly Farm and Vine and Branch Ranch with her husband, Clay Erskine. Over the past decade, she has served as the district manager of the Ada Soil and Water Conservation District. Josie is a proud native of Idaho. I lost my script. It's back. Josie is a proud Idaho native, where she tells us she was born and will die. She loves to get her hands in the dirt, becomes giddy when she sees rows of garden vegetables growing along with herbs and flowers, and finds joy in all that is green. She craves creation and finds no better place than her garden to satisfy her cravings. Today, she will speak to us and take questions on the topic using no-till farming to improve water quality. I've been witness to her presentations at the annual Idaho Water Quality Workshop and can tell you that you are in for a treat. I'm so happy to introduce you, Josie Erskine. Welcome, Josie.
Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for being here. I have had to relocate myself to a friend's house for better internet than I have out in the Sunny Slope area. She is close to the Caldwell Airport, and I am out on her porch, so I don't go in her house. So you may hear a few planes go by. So in the soil health community, we have a saying that we have many water quality problems because we have a soil health problem. And the idea is that the soil is the world's land-based filtering system. But because of how we have treated that soil, we have eliminated its ability at this point to filter water down through it efficiently. And this picture kind of shows some of that, how runoff and where runoff goes, and how agricultural runoff can become a really big water quality problem because of the soil health problems on our farms. Let me see if I can move forward. It takes me a minute on this to move my screen forward. It's kind of frozen. Oh, good. Most agricultural inputs, are water soluble. So that means fertilizers are water soluble. The reason that they're designed this way is so that the plants therefore can take them up also. But also then, because of this solubility, they can move with water. So whenever any land is irrigated, those inputs then also can move freely. And I think everybody on this call understands how water moves and where water ends up. And so those inputs then can be moved with the water to places that they were never supposed to be. And so soil health and building soil health can really make it so that the infiltration rates on your soil are higher, meaning its water holding capacity can grow, and that can grow through its carbon. And you'll see in this presentation how that works. Right now I'm going to start with a video, so I'm going to stop sharing this. Oh, uh-oh. Sorry. Pause.
You're okay.
Screen share.
You're
Got
okay.
it. Yeah, I'm fine. Okay. We'll go through this together. This is not the first video I wanted to share, but let's see if I can get out of it. Exit full screen. This video that you're about to watch is a video that the Ada Soil and Water Conservation District made about no-till, how it works, and about water quality. So I'm going to play this video. It's about 10 minutes, and I think you can hear it. I'll make sure. Here we go.
2 years ago, Jason Miller embarked on a journey towards soil health to solve issues he faced on his farm. With a sloping field and surface irrigation, Miller was losing topsoil to erosion. He was also looking for ways to keep his cattle feed costs down during the winter. Miller wondered if the soil health principles of cover crops, mob grazing, and no-till farming could address those issues and be profitable. He decided to do a field-by-field comparison. First, he would plant and harvest his entire field in barley. Then he would plant cover crops and mob graze them. Finally, he would till half the field and plant it in corn. On the other half, he would plant corn with a no-till drill. Miller hoped to measure the health of the soil while tracking the economic and environmental impacts of making the change from tillage to no-till.
My name is Jason Miller. My family has farmed and ranched in the Marsing area for the last 60 years. So some of the challenges I'm facing with this field here are soil erosion. The first couple of irrigations every year are pretty challenging to keep the ground stable and to keep sediment from running off the end of the field. It's been conventionally tilled for the last 25 years. It's furrow irrigated, and it has a slope of about 7%.
It is estimated that 15 million tons of soil are lost to wind and water erosion every year in Idaho. Like many farmers, Miller is trying to figure out how to keep his most precious resource, topsoil, on his field.
So right now we're in the middle of my cover crop mix that I planted in barley stubble. And what that means is this, as you can imagine, was a field of barley that we harvested with the combine. And coming in directly behind the combine, we planted this mix with a no-till drill. This right here is a Hunter hybrid turnip.
Miller planted a multi-species cover crop forage mix that would germinate in the heat but stay green until a deep freeze. This ensured soil coverage and diversity in cattle feed while capturing nitrogen, breaking up hardpan, and reducing water and wind erosion.
Today is December 29th. We're standing in the cover crop pasture again. As you can see, there's still a lot of green left in the field, which is pretty uncommon for this time of year to have green feed for the cattle to graze. These cows have a really high nutritional requirement, so to have something like this to graze is just huge. And not only that, but it's very economical for us too. We're not having to feed hay, which obviously costs money, or provide protein supplements, which also get fairly expensive. And so by using cover crops, we figure we saved last year roughly around $20,000 in what we would have had to feed in hay. And so that's huge for our operation. Being a smaller family farm, The less we feed hay, the better. And for us, having this green, lush feed to come onto in the winter is huge for us, and I know the cows love it too.
Comparative soil tests of Miller's conventionally tilled and no-tilled fields revealed surprising findings. The overall results showed that Miller's cover crop and mob grazing regime had begun to build a healthier soil ecosystem.
One of my main goals with this field is to do everything consistently and evenly. I want to be able to say that the no-till practice versus the conventional practice, there should be no difference in the corn's ability to yield. The process begins as far as planting is concerned. We came in, and on the conventional side, we dissed it twice, we moldboard plowed it, and then we coulter packered or groundhogged it. Basically just the way most farmers do it in this area, just basically preparing that to be planted. From there we came in and we put our fertilizer down, and then we had a bedder come through. And then how we did it on the no-till side of things, we just went through and sprayed out what little bit of cover crop was trying to come back this spring, and then we applied our fertilizer, and then we went back and refurrowed those existing corrugates to prepare it to be planted.
No-till farming can be a paradigm shift for many farmers. A clean, freshly tilled seedbed with no residue has long been considered the ideal blank slate for planting. But no-till farming proves that residue is healthy, while bare soil is missing biological diversity.
One concern I have and a fear that I have is I'm a little bit afraid that corn in the no-tilled side of things might not come as uniformly. Several different reasons. One is it's a little firmer over there. I don't know if in places where it might be a little more compact, if that's going to inhibit root growth and that plant's ability to grow. Another concern I have is the residue that was left in the field. So today we are checking the water. In a no-till system, you want some residue, but you don't want too much in a furrow irrigated field like this, because the only way for water to get from point A to point B is down the corrugate. And so I don't know if I slept very good last night, but I was concerned that we might have too much residue and those rows might be breaching and traveling into the second row there. And coming here this morning, it was a good sight to know that almost all the rows had gone through on their own. One thing that we're trying to measure here is what's the difference in the sediment loss off of these two fields. Is there a noticeable difference in the no-tilled portion? We think there should be, but that's what Robin Hadler with NRCS is going to come out here this morning and help us test that.
Okay, I'm Robin Hadler. I work with the Canyon Soil Conservation District, and we're out here today doing some water samples on this field. We will be sampling the water coming into the furrow, and we will also be sampling the water coming out of the furrow.
On the no-tilled side of the field, the sediment was significantly less than the tilled side of the field. You could visually see the difference in the waste ditch at the bottom of the field, because the waste ditch on the tilled side was completely full of sediment compared to the no-tilled side, which had very marginal sediment. And that all directly enters the Snake River. So it's pretty obvious that we saved at least 68%. One key observation I made during this project was while we were irrigating. As the water was going down the corrugates, I noticed that the water on the no-tilled portion of the field subbed across the bed, meaning the water came up to the seed significantly better on the no-tilled. So some of the observations I made as the corn was growing last year between the two different fields was the uniformity. That was the main thing I saw. So by adding cover crops, mob grazing, and no-till farming, I put another $163 per acre in my pocket that I wouldn't have had if I would have left that field fallow and conventionally tilled it. So I had a couple favorite parts of this project. One being, after planting the cover crop and seeing it grow, putting the cows out there and seeing how excited they get always makes me smile. One of my other favorite parts of the project was planting the no-tilled portion of the corn and seeing the corn come up, and all those days that you didn't get much sleep, and to see that it was a success, and at the end of the project showing that and proving to myself that I actually made more money on the no-tilled side of the corn makes me happy and makes me more willing to try it again and try new things more often, because the only way you're going to find out if it works or not is if you try.
I'm back. Is everybody back with me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great, great.
We heard the video, we can hear you, and you can put this back into,
Perfect.
excellent. Good job. That's such a great video. John.
Okay, great. So I'm going to go on. That video shows a really great kind of side-by-side comparison of no-till and tillage. Now, what no-till means is that the soil itself wasn't destroyed through plowing or tilling. The crop was planted with a special no-till drill that you've heard people talk about. This drill can plant into residue, so you can leave residue on the ground and then you can put right into the residue. And the reason is because soil now, as we're learning more about it, we're learning that soil is an ecosystem, just like a river ecosystem would be. So you can think of that ecosystem if every time you wanted to start the new year of a river system or a stream system, you completely came in and you tilled it up, or you had a tornado go through it and you had to start over. And that's what we're doing to this ecosystem of soil. And when we talk about soil ecosystems, fungus becomes a huge part of the soil ecosystem. And fungus makes these threads that are so fragile. They can be ripped up really easily, and it takes them a while to come back. In fact, bacteria can come back faster than this fungus can reproduce. And there's a whole system of ecosystem growth in soil. So you start with your bacteria, and then your fungus will show up. And then after your fungus shows up, you start having all of these different forms of life show up. But first they needed that bacteria and that fungus to reach almost an equilibrium, a 50-50 ratio, before they'll show up. In our agricultural soils, we really don't see that fungus because of tillage. And so that becomes a big part. So improving our soil health is key kind of to long-term stability of our agricultural system, which then becomes key to our long-term for water quality. So soil health practices, and this is part of no-till. Keep your soil covered. And whether that is with mulching or whether that's having residue from crops before, the other one is that you want to have active living roots. So we know that the most important function right now on our planet is photosynthesis, because photosynthesis can take that carbon out of our atmosphere and it can store it in the soil. But as it's storing it in the soil, it's also feeding all of these nutrients, giving all these nutrients to all of this biology or active living organisms in our soil. It's feeding them. So when we have this clean field that's just soil, we are essentially sterilizing our planet. So right now, if you go out around, you're going to see a lot of clean soil. And to agriculture, that clean soil bed is beautiful. And that's where this paradigm shift happens. Because as you see in this picture, this farmer is planting right now into what would be considered trash or a trash field. And it is really hard for us to have farmers understand no-till. And so with Jason's project, he can show the economics of no-till, which is important. Another thing that we're seeing very important is diversity in crops. So you hear about this cover cropping. This cover cropping is really to bring different species into your soil. So if you think of soil as a living ecosystem, just like you would think of a river or a stream, you don't want one type of fish in there. You have multiple fish, you have all of these arthropods, you have all different types of critters that make that ecosystem. And the soil is the exact same thing. So they all feed differently and interact differently with plants. And then the plants create this kind of mycorrhizal or this fungal network that they work together so they can share information, but they can also share nutrients with each other. Minimal disturbance. So as we're building this soil biology, if we come in and we rip it up or we till, we start from zero. It starts over. Some of these critters can go into kind of a stasis, like they can quickly make themselves into a spore form, and they can stay in a spore form for a long time, but they can't, a lot of them can't instantly do it. So tillage causes them to instantly do it. Some of them can, and the ones that can do that are usually the bacterias, but our higher life forms like our nematodes or our microarthropods, they have a much harder time being able to do that quickly because they're not in that bacterial or fungal form. They're living creatures. So we kill them and we wipe them out. The next thing is introducing animals into your rotation, which people find this really interesting. Why would you want to put an animal back on? But you have to remember that plants and animals, they coexist and they evolved together on this planet. So though we don't really quite understand the impact of hooves on plant life, we are seeing that plant life that has some hoof action, that has that animal's manure, that has that animals that come through and not overgraze it, but graze it in a way that mimics nature or mimics the ways that the herds would mimic those grasslands. We see a massive amount of biological growth in those soils. And so integrating animals became a really big part of this. So we talk about sustainable agriculture, and this is part of soil health. Sustainable agriculture does not deplete soils or people. So when you start talking about sustainable agriculture, you start also talking about social justice and social justice in agriculture. This becomes a huge part of this entire system, is looking at everything holistically. The people, the planets, the one that is missing on this is also the animals become looked at holistically. And right now in agriculture, we're seeing a major breakdown of a system that hasn't looked holistically. We're seeing plants that are processing plants having COVID come forward, and we're seeing all of these producers that were processing for this one plant having to euthanize all of these animals, and now we're going to see these shortages. So we're not creating these systems that function holistically. We've created these broken systems in agriculture, and now it's looking at how do we create these systems that are more sustainable. And right now, being a local farmer, we're seeing an outcry of support. Most of my farm friends that are raising livestock, they've never had a demand for their livestock as we're seeing in this time. So we may see a lot of farms move in this direction just so that they can stay farming into the future. So this is the question: how do we do all of this? And it's a paradigm shift. And it's a paradigm shift that's urgently needed in agriculture, and it's urgently needed in this time right now. So like a farmer like myself that's looking for this paradigm shift, the first thing that I'm going to look for is how to change my mind. And the first thing is I need to be different about crops that I want to grow. So I'm a farmer and you ask me, what is something I want to harvest more of? This year, I want to harvest more sunlight. I want to harvest more photosynthesis. That means that I want the ground around my farm to be covered. I want it to be functioning. I want more cover crop because I want that photosynthesis. I want to capture carbon. I want more native bees. I don't want to be dependent on beehives that are collapsing. So to have those native bees, I have to understand their habitat. I need to plant more food for them. That means pollinator plants, and I need to leave more ground undisturbed because a lot of them make their houses underground. So I have to understand their whole cycle of the native bees, and then I have to start planning for them. I want more frogs and amphibians on my farm. I want to harvest the biology that's there. There are different forms that we can access as farmers that we're not doing well at doing. We're discrediting them. I want a lot more fungal hyphae on my farm, and I'll show you some of the ways that farmers are doing that through no-till and through sustainability. I want beneficial nematodes. Beneficial nematodes have pretty much been eradicated throughout the Treasure Valley soils through nematicides, which they spray because of root-feeding nematodes that get into potatoes or sugar beets. But a nematode in the biological world or the soil world is the wolf of that structure. And if you have beneficial nematodes, predatory nematodes can eat root-feeding nematodes. If you start establishing those, then you can create a system in your soil where it's functioning really high. Beneficial nematodes show up naturally in no-tilled systems that have been cover cropped and brought cows in about 10 years. So that shows you how long it takes to have these systems go back to normal. I want songbirds. One, because they eat so many pests. They're great. So that means that right now I have to plant skin, which is trees or shrubs around my farm. You have to provide house and shelter so that then you can attract all of those biological kind of creations that can come and help you, those services. So songbirds provide those biological services. Human interactions on the farm. So humans have been removed off of the farms and we have put machinery on the farms. And because of that, we're removing thought and we're removing brains. So there's a great Japanese proverb that the best fertilizer for any farm is the farmer's footprint. And then we need community support. We need to know that if people build these farms, if they do no-till, if they do cover crop, that they'll be supported on that. Crop rotation becomes a huge part of no-till farming. And the reason is because you start wanting to build soil. You're going to want to rotate those crops. You're going to want to cover crop between seasons so that you can start using all of that as integrative pest management. And that all is so that you can lower your herbicide. You can create habitat for those predators so you can lower your herbicide. And when you start being able to lower your herbicide or your pesticides, either one of them, or your fungicides, we're going to see less of that in our water. So all of these things start the building blocks of how the soil becomes the tool for our water. New technologies are being used on farms. We're moving away from soil tests that tell us the NPK Those are all water soluble. Now what we want to build is we want to build that biology in our soil. That biology can harvest the NPK for the plants themselves. So that is where we're moving, and that starts with inoculation through compost teas or inoculation through compost. So the Ada Soil and Water Conservation District purchased a microscope, and so did NRCS, and we started processing through those microscopes soils. And then the Ada District purchased commercial worm bins. And the reason for this is because it's been proven that in a worm bin managed well, you can grow diversity really quickly. And so this is a PLFA, which is a phospholipid fatty acid test done on one of the worm bins that currently I'm managing. And how we're using these worms is we're harvesting their castings or their poop. We're turning it into a liquid immediately, and we are fertigating it onto the soil. And if you see in that total living biomass, this number right now, 69,000. If you go down to total biomass, and it will show you the diversity of it, and it will show you that more than 4,000 is excellent. So at this point, we have 69,000 of this in our worm castings that's been identified. So we're being able in this system to grow this diversity really quickly. And if you remember, I told you that by cover cropping and bringing in animals, you can see that predatory nematode reappear in about 10 years. Through this system right now of inoculating, we can start cover cropping, and we can bring animals in and we can inoculate. And since I'm using my microscope, I can know that I have those nematodes. And within 6 months, I can see the biology reappear through inoculation. So it's that same thing of reintroduction. It's that same idea of taking a species and maybe reintroducing it into a habitat and seeing it flourish. And so on this, you see my bacteria and fungus is almost a 50-50. You cannot have a high bacteria soil have all of these organisms. It has to be a 50-50. Farmers are moving to this method in no-till. This is the next step. So you start with no-till, then you start wanting to know and manage your biology. Once you can start managing your biology in your no-till, this is the system of 0% fertilization. So now on my farm, I've reached a point that I add absolutely no nitrogen fertilizer to my farm because I am introducing the biology that can harvest that nitrogen for me. So as we move forward, we understand mitigating climate change, reducing erosion, protecting our water quality and our quantity. So as this soil builds, it builds carbon in it, right? It builds organic matter. And that organic matter can hold water. It has water holding capacity, and I'll show you more about that. We start talking about conservation tillage, intense mob grazing to improve soil, integrative pest management, and understanding the new role of technologies. So when we talk about technology, we can start using technology in a way that we can only give water to plants. They now have these little systems that they can put on corn that tells them exactly when the corn is stressed, and they can administer water until the corn is not stressed. So we can use all of this technology to help us through drought or use less water in our agricultural systems. So how I've gotten into all of this is that I have a mentor, and my mentors are Full Belly Farm, and they have helped lead me through all of this process. But farmers need mentors in this, because this is the way that we're growing. And Brad McIntyre, who is going to give the presentation tonight, is probably one of the leading mentors of no-till farming in the Treasure Valley, and he'll do a great job. He's so fun to watch. This is a little bit about my farm, Peaceful Belly Farm. Sorry, I went kind of quick through that. I'm a 35-acre farm, fruits and vegetables and herbs. I do CSA programs. I do also a lot of projects, a lot of scientific projects on my farm, trying to figure out what type of cover crops work best, what type of pollinator blends attract what, even trying to figure out kind of what insects are attacking some of our major crops in Idaho, and what crops could be planted with them to attract biological services from predatory insects, and what pollinator plants or food plants, nectar plants, those insects also need to survive. In building healthy soil, some of you have maybe watched that fantastic fungus movie that's out right now. If you haven't, you should, because what we're learning about mycorrhizal attachments to the roots, that's fungus growing under soil, and what they can do right now really shows that there's this complex system under the soil of fungal roots that does a lot more than humans ever imagined possible. And they also can help these roots take up nutrients and mine these nutrients from the soil. And just getting these fungal roots can help us reduce fertilizer use in our soils. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stop share, and I'm going to show you one more video, and then I'm going to be open for questions. This can only start by getting humans that care about the environment back on the farm. And that doesn't just mean in the form of farmers. That means in the form of science. We need to get science back on farms. That's about conservation. That's about soil health. The idea of water quality in a lot of ways has made it so that we're doing these Band-Aids ideas instead of starting at the source. How do we help farmers start growing in a different way? So I'm going to stop this share, and then I'm going to go to a video, and it will take me just a second to figure that out. This video is from Michael Polland. This is a really great, this talks about soil health. This is a great introduction video of pretty much everything that I've said. It's a great way to share too.
Soil is a living miracle. In one handful of soil, there are more organisms than there are humans on Earth. And we are only beginning to understand this vast network of beings right beneath our feet. We rely on healthy soil for 95% of what we eat. Yet, we take it for granted. Thousands of years of plowing, deforestation, and erosion have left our soils in dire shape. And we're accelerating the loss of this essential resource. But there's a lot more to the story. When soil is damaged, it releases carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And this has had serious consequences for the climate. Too much carbon in the atmosphere is causing the Earth to overheat. That excess carbon is also acidifying our oceans. threatening marine life. Meanwhile, there's not enough carbon where it once was, in the soil. In fact, many of the world's cultivated soils have lost more than 50% of their original carbon stocks. But there's actually some good news. We now know how to put carbon back in the soil where it belongs. Plants capture carbon dioxide in their leaves and pump the carbon down through their roots to feed hungry microorganisms living in the soil. Now, what had been atmospheric carbon, a problem, becomes soil carbon, a solution. Practices like keeping soil covered with plants, increasing crop diversity, composting, and carefully planned grazing are proven ways to put carbon back into the soil. Carbon-rich soils act like giant sponges, absorbing water during floods and providing it to plants in times of drought. And adding carbon to soil makes the land much more productive. The French government recognizes this and is calling on all countries to join them in increasing soil carbon by 0.4% each year. If every nation were to reach this ambitious but achievable goal, we could store 75% of global annual greenhouse gas emissions, enough to make a real difference to our planet's future well-being. Of course, we still need to reduce our fossil fuel emissions, but we don't need to develop expensive or risky technologies. Instead, what we need is a lot more photosynthesis. Climate change can be overwhelming, yet there is real hope. Healthy soil can be a major sink for carbon, but this fact hasn't been well known until now. Because now we know a soil solution is right beneath our feet.
So I'm back. Liz, I might need a little bit of help now how to move this out or what that looks like to answer questions, because I don't see the chat on mine. If you're there, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Josie. I think the audience has something to say to you.
How do I see that chat, Liz? If I get out of this, do I stop share?
You could go ahead and stop sharing.
Okay, great.
Um,
Did it work?
yes, I think that it still has mine on there. So hang on, we'll put something a little better than that up there. Okay, so Josie, in order to share, and thank you so much for the awesome presentation. To get onto the chat, look where you're on that control bar where it says mute and start video, and go to the three dots on the far right. The more. And if you go up from there, hit that, then the chat, you should be able to open your chat box.
Okay, great. I've got it.
You just take a second to look at that. I again want to welcome everybody on behalf of the Boise River Enhancement Network and Lower Boise Watershed Council, Ada Soil and Water Conservation District, Peaceful Valley Farm, to this program today. And I want to let you guys know that our program next week is going to be on enhancing habitat at Barber Park. That's Ada County's Barber Park on the east side of the city of Boise, and where more than 600 invasive trees were taken out in early February. So that's going to be a great program with Alan Crockett, Roger Rosentreader, and Scott Coburg next Friday. And then the Friday after that, which will be May 8th, Chris Colson from Ducks Unlimited is going to give an awesome presentation about waterfowl habitat improvement projects that are going on mostly on private land. And remember, if you didn't get an email about this program, we would love to include you for the next emails about our programs. And you just need to go to our website and join, and it's free. All right, Josie, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, great. So one of the questions that I see is about prime farmland being lost. And I hope Stephanie can be able to kind of maybe chat in here, put in the chat box. But Stephanie, on behalf of the Ada District, just created a map of just Ada County, but it shows all of the people that get ag land exemptions, and then who it's owned by, if it's owned by developers or how that's owned. And this was created by the Ada District for the county commissioners of Ada County to kind of really see how growth can happen, what farms are still owned by families, and how we can move forward that way. I think that during this time is a great time to kind of reassess and look at the importance of farmland, and not just as farmland, but as land that can capture carbon close to an urban area. So we have an advantage in the Treasure Valley that we really just kind of have this one urban area surrounded by all of this irrigated land. And that irrigated land can become really important in the future for air quality for the Treasure Valley if handled correctly. The next one is, the next question I got, I'm going down, is about how do we engage large scale agriculture? Well, the Canyon Soil District and the Boise River Enhancement Network and the Boise Lower Watershed just helped Canyon County get 2 large no-till drills. And the truth is, farmers are watching these no-till drills because those no-till farmers are saving money in plowing, they're saving money in fuel, and they're coming out with more money in their pockets. So large-scale ag is watching. In fact, the Simplot Corporation right now has its own no-till drills. And they are doing a lot of work in cover crops right now, in potatoes and in sugar beets. So large scale ag is waking up. John Deere tractor is trying to buy some of the rights to no-till drills and that. So it's growing. Where can you find the link to Miller's video? It's on the Ada Soil and Water Conservation District's YouTube channel. And we have some other videos like that we've made that are really great. Oh, somebody says, thanks for the online greenhouse. Yes, that's awesome. Lawns and gardens. Yes, so in a lawn, you need to get some diversity into that lawn. That's going to be really important that it's not just one type of grass for lawns and gardens. And in gardens, you need to mulch. If you're not doing cover crop, you need to mulch. You need to feed that biology, and it can also be fed through decomposition, just like the worms can be fed. I think Stephanie put those maps up. If you're wanting more resources on lawns and gardens, you can join that Soil Stewards, and we'll talk about that kind of use too. Does anybody have any other questions through chat? It looks like Liz has a poll, and I'm going to answer, and maybe you guys all know about it, pore structure now from the last poll. So pore structure is decreased through tilling. because pore structure is created by the living creatures in your soil. The worms make the holes, the beetles make the holes, and that is called pore structure. So when you till, you eliminate pore structure. You just wipe it out. That, Liz, is all I have. If you have other things for me.
Hey, let's see if there's a few more questions for Josie. If you haven't figured out how to find your chat yet, you go to the far right of your control bar and the three little dots that say, on mine anyway, they say more. That's where you can open up the chat window and type in your question for Josie. Hey, Josie, I have a question for you, and I have the privilege of just asking it. What kinds of projects does the Ada Soil and Water Conservation District have going right now? What kind of research projects, water quality things?
Well, right now we have in grapes, perennial grapes and wine grapes, we have some pollinator trials and also some of this vermicomposting inoculation to see if you can eliminate all fungicide application in grapes. We're doing soil inoculants in just row crops and then testing multiple times to see how quickly in a row crop system you can build the biology. We're doing different cover crops, multi-species, non-multi-species, to see feed ratios for animals, what you get the most feed. We're doing cover crops right after crops are taken out in the valley, so either wheat or something is harvested, and then we're doing cover crops right at that time to see if farmers can use cover crops as a second crop income. So instead of leaving the soil fallow, is there a way that they can make two crop incomes by using cover crops on their farms? We're also doing these major pollinator plants, and then we're working with the College of Idaho, who is tracking all of the different native pollinators and what species of plants they're attracted to, and then their biological services that species can provide for certain crops that are grown in the Treasure Valley, and then recording their growth over the next few years. Do we see species growing because of these pollinator plantings? So those are just a few of the projects that we're doing right now.
Wow, well, that's a big few. Well, I know that you went to a lot of trouble to get into a location today to do this, and that things are very, very busy at Peaceful Belly right now, growing a lot of delicious local food for us for this coming summer and into the fall. So I think that everybody who participated today, you did an awesome job. I know that I think you did. And we thank you so much. And I want to thank everybody who came today. I'm going to end this meeting in just a minute, and we hope that everybody will come back and join us again next Friday. And visit our website. We have a lot of good blogs on there, and we have the recording of today's program will be put both onto the Facebook page and onto the webpage, Boise River Enhancement Network webpage, and then you can share that with whomever you want or go back and watch part of it again if you'd like. Thanks a lot, everybody. Really, really appreciate you being here with us today. Bye-bye.